Faith's hands trembled as she stood before the most dangerous man in Seoul. Kang Min-ho, the Korean mafia boss whose cold eyes could end lives with a glance, yet now burned with something far more terrifying as they traced every curve of her body. She'd come to his penthouse with one desperate offer to save her dying mother. Herself untouched and innocent, wrapped in nothing but courage and a red dress that made his jaw clench with a hunger that shook even his iron control. The moment his fingers brushed her wrist, something ancient and possessive roared to life inside him, and she knew with absolute certainty that this New Year's gift would chain them both to a fate darker and more consuming than either could escape. Welcome to Afrokorea TV. Please like, share and subscribe. The city of Seoul glittered below the floor-to-ceiling windows of the penthouse, but Faith couldn't tear her eyes away from the man seated behind the massive desk. Kang Min-ho didn't move, didn't speak. He simply watched her with the intensity of a predator deciding whether to strike or save her. His dark suit was perfectly tailored, emphasizing broad shoulders and a powerful frame that radiated danger. His face was beautiful in the way a blade was beautiful. Sharp, cold, lethal. "You're trembling," he said finally, his voice deep and accented, sending shivers down her spine. "Are you afraid of me?" Faith lifted her chin, forcing herself to meet his gaze. "Should I be?" A ghost of a smile touched his lips. "Most people are." She swallowed hard, her fingers twisting in the fabric of her dress. "I'm not here because I want to be. I'm here because I have no choice." Min-ho rose from his chair with fluid grace, moving around the desk with deliberate slowness. He was tall, imposing, and as he approached, Faith's heart hammered against her ribs. He stopped just inches away, close enough that she could smell his cologne, expensive, masculine, intoxicating. "Your friend explained your situation," he said softly, his eyes never leaving hers. "Your mother needs surgery. Expensive surgery. And you have nothing to offer except." His gaze dropped, sweeping over her curves in a way that made her skin burn. "Yourself." "Yes." The word came out as a whisper. Min-ho reached out, his fingers catching her chin, tilting her face up. His touch was gentle, but there was steel beneath it. "Do you understand what you're offering me?" "I understand." But her voice shook, betraying her fear. Something flickered in his eyes, something almost like conflict. "You're a virgin." It wasn't a question, but she nodded anyway. Heat flooded her cheeks. For a long moment he simply stared at her, his thumb brushing across her lower lip in a gesture so intimate it made her breath catch. Then he released her, stepping back abruptly. "Go home, Faith." She blinked, confusion replacing fear. "What? Go home. I'll have the money transferred for your mother's surgery. You don't need to do this." Relief and shock warred inside her, but something else stirred too, something she couldn't name. "I don't understand. Why would you?" "Because," he interrupted, his voice rough, "if I touch you tonight I won't stop. And you deserve better than to give yourself away out of desperation." The next day, Faith sat in the hospital waiting room, still reeling from the previous night. True to his word, Min-ho had transferred the full amount needed for her mother's surgery. The procedure was already underway, and the doctors were optimistic. She should have felt nothing but gratitude and relief. Instead, she couldn't stop thinking about the way he'd looked at her. The restraint in his touch, the hunger in his eyes that he'd fought so hard to control. Her phone buzzed. An unknown number. "Are you at the hospital?" "Hey." Her heart skipped. How did he know? How did he even have her number? "Yes. The surgery started an hour ago." "Good. Eat something. You look like you haven't slept." She glanced around the waiting room, suddenly aware that he might be watching. But there was no one suspicious, no one paying attention to her. "How do you know I haven't slept?" The response came immediately, "Because I haven't either." Later that evening, after her mother was safely out of surgery and resting, Faith found a car waiting outside the hospital. The driver, a stern-faced man in a black suit, held the door open for her. "Mr. Kang sent me to take you home," he said simply. Faith hesitated, exhaustion warring with caution. But it was late, and she was too tired to argue. She climbed into the back seat of the luxury vehicle, sinking into leather seats that probably cost more than her entire year's rent. They didn't go to her apartment. Instead, The car pulled up to a high-rise building in one of Seoul's most exclusive districts. The driver opened her door. "Mr. Kong is expecting you." "I didn't agree to see him," Faith protested, even as her traitorous heart beat faster. "He said you would say that. He also said to tell you that you owe him nothing, but he would like 5 minutes of your time." 5 minutes. What could happen in 5 minutes? Everything as it turned out. Minho's penthouse was just as intimidating in the light of evening as it had been the night before. But this time he wasn't behind his desk. He stood by the windows, hands in his pockets, looking out at the city. He'd removed his jacket, and his white shirt was rolled up at the sleeves, revealing strong forearms. He turned when she entered, and something in his expression made her breath catch. He looked different. Softer somehow, though no less powerful. "Thank you for coming," he said quietly. "Your driver didn't give me much choice," she replied, trying to sound braver than she felt. A hint of a smile. "My apologies. I wanted to make sure you were all right." "Why do you care?" The question hung in the air between them. Minho moved closer, each step measured and deliberate. "I've been asking myself the same thing since you walked into my office last night." He stopped in front of her, close enough that she had to tilt her head back to meet his eyes. "I don't do this, Faith. I don't help people. I don't make exceptions. I destroy things. I take what I want without mercy or remorse. It's who I am. It's what I've had to become to survive in this world." His hand came up, fingers brushing a stray curl away from her face. The gesture was achingly gentle. "But when I look at you, something inside me shifts. And I don't know what to do with that." Faith's pulse raced. "Minho. Stay." The word was barely a whisper. "Not as payment. Not as obligation. Just stay. Have dinner with me. Let me get to know you. And then if you want to leave, I'll never contact you again." She should have said no. Every instinct screamed that getting involved with a man like Kong Minho was dangerous, reckless, foolish. But there was something in his eyes. A loneliness that mirrored her own. A hunger for connection that went beyond physical desire. "Okay," she heard herself say. "Dinner." The meal was served on the terrace, beneath strings of soft lights and the Seoul skyline. Minho was surprisingly easy to talk to once the initial tension faded. He asked about her life in Seoul, how she'd ended up so far from home, what she missed about Africa. He listened with genuine interest, his dark eyes never leaving her face. "What about you?" she asked, emboldened by wine and his unexpected warmth. "How does someone become?" She gestured vaguely, not quite sure how to finish. "A monster," he supplied, amusement coloring his tone. "I was going to say powerful," she corrected. "But you don't seem like a monster to me." Something dark flickered across his face. "That's because you haven't seen what I'm capable of." "Then show me." He stared at her, clearly surprised. "You don't want that." "Maybe I do. Maybe I want to understand." Minho was quiet for a long moment, his fingers toying with his wine glass. "My father built this empire from nothing. Blood, fear, loyalty, those were his tools. I was raised to inherit it, trained from childhood to be ruthless, strategic, untouchable. When he died, I was 23. Too young, many said. Weak, others whispered. I had to prove them wrong." His jaw tightened. "So I became everything they feared. I eliminated rivals, crushed opposition, built something so powerful that no one would ever dare question me again. And somewhere along the way, I forgot what it felt like to be anything other than cold." Faith reached across the table, her hand covering his. The touch was simple, innocent, but electricity shot through both of them. "You're not cold now." Minho's fingers curled around hers, his grip almost desperate. "No," he agreed, his voice rough. "I'm not." A few days later, Faith visited her mother in the hospital. The older woman was recovering well, asking questions about the mysterious benefactor who'd paid for everything. Faith deflected, not ready to explain something she didn't fully understand herself. As she left the hospital, she noticed a black car following at a distance. Not the same one as before, but similar. Minho's men, she realized. He was having her protected. The thought should have annoyed her. Instead, it sent a warm flush through her chest. That evening, flowers arrived at her apartment. Not roses. He somehow knew she preferred wildflowers. The card read simply, "Thinking of you. M." The next day, she found a gift box outside her door. Inside was a winter coat, luxurious, perfectly her size, in a deep burgundy that complemented her skin tone beautifully. Another card. "Seoul winters are harsh. Stay warm." She texted him, "You need to stop sending me things." His reply, "Why?" "Because I can't accept all this." "You're not accepting. I'm giving. There's a difference." Mingo. "Humor me, Faith. Let me take care of you." And that was the problem, wasn't it? She was starting to like it. Starting to crave the attention, the protection. The way he looked at her like she was something precious and rare. The following week, Minho took her to an art gallery opening. It was the first time she'd seen him in a public setting, and the difference was striking. Here he was the feared mafia boss again, cold, commanding, making grown men step aside with just a glance. People whispered when he entered, couples on his arm turning heads. But his hand never left the small of her back, possessive and protective. "You're staring," she murmured as they stood before a painting. "Can you blame me?" His breath was warm against her ear, sending shivers down her spine. "You're the most beautiful woman in this room." A man approached, young, handsome, clearly wealthy. He smiled at Faith, ignoring Minho entirely. "I don't think I've seen you at these events before." "I'm Young-seo." "And you are." Before Faith could respond, Minho's arm slid around her waist, pulling her firmly against his side. The movement was smooth, casual, but the message was clear. "She's with me." Young-soo's smile faltered as he finally looked at Minho, really looked, and recognition dawned. Color drained from his face. "Mr. Kong. I didn't. I apologize. I didn't realize." "Now you do." Minho's voice was ice. "Leave." The man practically fled. Faith glanced up at Minho, seeing the barely controlled fury in his eyes. "That was harsh. He was looking at you." Each word was clipped. "People look at each other at social events, Minho." His jaw clenched. "Not like that. Not at what's mine." The possessiveness should have made her angry. Instead, heat pooled low in her belly. "Yours." Minho turned to face her fully, his dark eyes burning with an intensity that stole her breath. "Yes, Mine. Even if you don't know it yet." Later that night, he drove her home himself, dismissing his driver. The silence in the car was charged, heavy with unspoken desire. When they reached her building, Minho walked her to her door. "Thank you for tonight," Faith said, fumbling with her keys. His hand covered hers, stilling her movements. "Faith." She looked up, and the hunger in his eyes nearly undid her. "Yes. I'm trying to be patient. Trying to do this right. But you're making it very difficult." "I'm not doing anything," she whispered. "You exist. That's enough." His free hand cupped her face, thumb brushing her cheekbone. "Tell me to leave. Tell me you don't feel this too." But she couldn't. Because she did feel it. This magnetic pull. This impossible connection that defied logic and reason. "I can't," she admitted. Minho's control snapped. He kissed her with a desperation that matched her own, backing her against her door. His body pressed against hers, all hard muscle and barely restrained power. Faith's hands fisted in his shirt, pulling him closer, needing more. When he finally pulled back, they were both breathing hard. His forehead rested against hers. "Let me in, Faith. Not just into your apartment. Into your life. Into your heart." "You scare me," she confessed. "I know. I scare myself when I'm with you. Because I've never felt like this before, and I don't know how to control it." She unlocked her door, stepping inside. Then she looked back at him, heart pounding. "Do you want to come in?" The next morning, Faith woke wrapped in Minho's arms. Nothing had happened. He'd held her through the night, occasionally pressing kisses to her hair, but respecting the unspoken boundary between them. Still, the intimacy of sleeping beside him, of waking to his steady heartbeat beneath her ear, felt more profound than any physical act. "Good morning," his deep voice rumbled through his chest. She tilted her head back to find him already watching her, his expression soft in the early light. "Regrets?" "No. You." His arms tightened around her. "Never." Over the following days, Minho became a constant presence in her life. He showed up at the hospital when she visited her mother, charming the older woman with his careful Korean English and gentle demeanor. He sent lunch to her workplace. She'd started temping at a translation company, with little notes that made her smile. He called every evening just to hear her voice. But there were reminders of who he was too. The men who always hovered at a distance, protecting her. The hushed conversations he'd take in another room, his voice cold and commanding. The scars she'd noticed on his body, some old, some newer. Testament to a violent life. One evening, Faith was leaving work when a car pulled up beside her. Not Minho's. The window rolled down, revealing a woman's face, beautiful, elegant, and sharp as a knife. "So you're the one who's caught Minho's attention," the woman said in perfect English, her smile not reaching her eyes. "I'm Lee So-yin, an old friend."
Fait-ce inscrime danger?
"I'm sorry I don't. I'll be brief. Minho is many things, but faithful isn't one of them. Whatever promises he's made, whatever fantasy you're living, it will end. He'll get bored, move on, and you'll be left with nothing. I'm trying to save you the heartbreak." Before Faith could respond, another car screeched to a stop. Minho emerged, his face a mask of fury. "Sujin, leave. Now." The woman's smile widened. "I was just introducing myself to your new pet." Minho moved so fast Faith almost missed it. He had Sujin's car door open, leaning in close enough that Faith couldn't hear his words. But whatever he said made the color drain from the woman's face. She drove away without another word. Minho turned to Faith, the fury evaporating, replaced by concern. "Are you all right? Did she hurt you?" "No, just talked." "Minho, who was that?" His jaw tightened. "Someone from my past. Someone who means nothing." She seemed to think otherwise. "Faith." He cupped her face in both hands. "Look at me. Whatever she said, it's not true. You are not a passing interest. You are not temporary. What I feel for you is..." He stopped, struggling for words. "It's everything. But you've been with other women. Had other relationships. Transactions. Arrangements. Nothing that touched my heart." His eyes burned into hers. "Not like you. Never like you." That night, Faith couldn't sleep. Sujin's words echoed in her mind, feeding insecurities she'd tried to ignore. She was so different from Minho's world. Different culture, different background, no money, no power. What could she possibly offer a man who had everything? The next day, she tried to create distance, sending brief replies to his texts, claiming she was busy when he asked to see her. Minho, perceptive as always, noticed immediately. He showed up at her apartment that evening, looking dangerous and disheveled, like he'd run there. "What's wrong?" "Nothing. I'm just tired." "Don't lie to me." He stepped inside, closing the door behind him. "What did Sujin say to you?" Faith wrapped her arms around herself. "Does it matter?" "It matters when it makes you pull away from me." He moved closer, his presence overwhelming in her small space. "Talk to me, Faith." "She's right, isn't she? We don't make sense. We're from different worlds. Eventually you'll realize." Minho kissed her, cutting off her doubts with a desperation that stole her breath. When he pulled back, his eyes were fierce. "The only thing I'll eventually realize is that I can't live without you. Do you understand? I've spent my entire life building walls, keeping everyone at a distance, convinced that connection was weakness. And then you walked into my office with your courage and your fear and your ridiculous offer. And everything changed." His hands framed her face, gentle despite the intensity in his voice. "You make me want to be better. Want to be more than the monster everyone fears. You make me feel human again, Faith. So don't you dare push me away because of someone else's poison." Tears spilled down her cheeks. "I'm scared." "So am I." He pressed his forehead to hers. "But I'd rather be terrified with you than empty without you." She kissed him then, pouring everything she felt into it. The fear, the longing, the desperate hope that maybe impossibly, this could work. Minho responded with equal fervor, lifting her easily, her legs wrapping around his waist as he carried her to the bedroom. What followed was tender and passionate, Minho worshipping every inch of her with touches and kisses that left her trembling. He took his time, building the heat between them until Faith thought she might shatter from the intensity. And when they finally came together, when boundaries dissolved and two became one, it felt like something sacred and unbreakable clicking into place. Afterward, as they lay tangled together, Minho traced lazy patterns on her skin. "You're mine now," he murmured against her hair. "Completely mine. And I'm yours. No one else exists." Faith smiled, exhausted and blissfully content. "So possessive. You have no idea." His arms tightened around her. "But you'll learn." The following morning, Faith woke alone, panic fluttering in her chest. Had he left? Had last night been a mistake? But then she heard movement in the kitchen, smelled coffee brewing. She wrapped herself in a robe and found Minho cooking breakfast, looking completely at ease in her tiny kitchen despite his expensive suit pants and bare chest. "You cook?" she asked, surprise evident in her voice. He glanced over his shoulder, his smile devastating. "I have many hidden talents." "Sit. Eat." As they shared breakfast, Minho's phone buzzed incessantly. He ignored it until finally answering with clipped Korean, his expression darkening. When he hung up, tension radiated from him. "I have to go. Business issue that requires my immediate attention." He pulled her close, kissing her thoroughly. "Stay here today. Don't go anywhere alone. I'll have men posted outside." "Minho, what's wrong?" "Nothing you need to worry about. I'll handle it." But his eyes told a different story. Something dangerous was brewing. By midday, Faith was climbing the walls. She called her friend Ji-won, needing to talk about everything that had happened. They agreed to meet at a cafe near the hospital. Faith knew she was disobeying Minho's order to stay put, but she needed normalcy, needed to process this whirlwind with someone who knew her. She slipped out the back entrance of her building, not noticing the black sedan that pulled away from the curb when she left. The cafe was warm and crowded. Ji-won listened with wide eyes as Faith explained everything. The desperation that led her to Minho, his unexpected kindness, the way her feelings had grown from gratitude to something far more consuming. "Faith, you know what he is, right?" Ji-won said carefully. "Kang Minho isn't just powerful. He's dangerous. People disappear around him. There are rumors." "I know what he is." Faith stirred her coffee absently. "But when I'm with him, I see something different. Someone different." "Maybe. Or maybe you're seeing what you want to see." Before Faith could respond, the cafe door burst open. 3 men entered, not Minho's men. Wrong suits, wrong energy. Their eyes locked on Faith immediately. Faith's heart stopped. She grabbed Ji-won's hand. "We need to leave. Now." They bolted for the back exit, but the men were faster. One grabbed Faith's arm, yanking her backward. She screamed, fighting, but his grip was iron. Ji-won tried to help, and was shoved hard against a table. "Mr. Park sends his regards," the man hissed in Faith's ear. "You're coming with us." And then everything exploded into chaos. Minho's men crashed through the front, weapons drawn. Gunfire erupted. Not aimed at people but at the ceiling, at windows, creating panic and confusion. In the chaos, someone pulled Faith away from her captor. It was Kwon, Minho's head of security. "Car. Now." They ran, leaving Ji-won with other guards who'd protect her. Kwon pushed Faith into an armored vehicle that peeled away from the curb with screeching tires. "What just happened?" Faith gasped, adrenaline making her shake. "You were targeted. Mr. Park, a rival, wants leverage against Minho. You're that leverage." Kwon's expression was grim. "The boss is going to lose his mind when he finds out." That was an understatement. When they arrived at Minho's main headquarters, a building Faith had never seen before, he was waiting. The fury radiating from him was terrifying. His men stepped back instinctively as he strode toward the car. He pulled Faith out, his hands running over her, checking for injuries. "Are you hurt? Did they touch you?" "I'm fine. Minho, I'm sorry, I just needed." "To disobey me? To put yourself in danger?" His voice was harsh, but his hands were gentle as they cupped her face. "Do you have any idea what I would have done if they'd taken you? What I would have become?" "I didn't think." "No. You didn't." He pulled her against him, his whole body trembling with barely controlled rage and fear. "You're everything, Faith. Everything. And if something happened to you because of me, because of my world. He couldn't finish. Faith wrapped her arms around him, feeling the rapid pound of his heart. I'm sorry. I'm okay. We're okay. Minho pulled back, his eyes hard as diamonds. No. We're not. Not until I've dealt with Park and anyone else who thinks they can touch what's mine. He turned to Kwan. Gather everyone. Every man we have. I want Park's operations burned to the ground by morning. No merci. No survivors. Minho, Faith grabbed his arm. What are you saying? He looked at her, and for the first time, she saw the monster he'd warned her about. Cold, merciless, terrifying. I'm saying that I will destroy anyone who threatens you. Completely. I warned you, Faith. I'm not a good man. But you don't have to do this. We can just. There is no just. There's only making sure this never happens again. Making sure everyone knows that touching you means death. He kissed her forehead, gentle despite the violence in his words. Stay here. You'll be safe. I'll be back before dawn. And then he was gone, leaving Faith in a luxurious room that felt like a gilded cage, with guards outside and fear churning in her stomach. What had she gotten herself into? Hours crawled by like years. Faith paced the elegant room, her mind replaying the cafe attack, the gunfire, the cold fury in Minho's eyes. She'd seen glimpses of his darker side before, but tonight she'd witnessed the full weight of what it meant to be Kong Minho. A man who could order deaths without hesitation, who ruled through fear and blood. Her phone buzzed. G1 checking in, safe at home with two of Minho's guards stationed outside her apartment. At least her friend was protected. Faith texted back reassurances she didn't fully feel herself. Dawn broke over Seoul, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold. Faith had given up on sleep, standing by the window watching the city wake. The door opened behind her, and she turned to find Minho entering, exhausted but unharmed. His shirt was wrinkled, sleeves still rolled up, a shadow of stubble darkening his jaw. It's done, he said quietly, closing the door. Park won't be a problem anymore. Neither will anyone associated with him. Faith's throat tightened. What did you do? What needed to be done? He moved toward her, but she stepped back, putting space between them. Minho stopped, something like pain flickering across his face. Faith, how many people died tonight because of me? Because of him, Minho corrected, his voice firm. Because he chose to come after you. To use you against me. I protected what's mine. I'm not a possession. The words burst out, months of confusion and fear and overwhelming emotion finally breaking through. I am a person, Minho. A person who didn't ask for any of this violence. His jaw clenched. You think I don't know that? You think I wanted to introduce you to this world? I tried to send you away that first night, tried to protect you from exactly this. Then maybe you should have tried harder. Tears spilled down her cheeks. Maybe I should have stayed away. The words hung in the air between them, sharp and cutting. Minho's expression hardened, walls slamming back into place. Is that what you want? To leave? Faith wrapped her arms around herself, suddenly cold despite the heated room. I don't know what I want anymore. I just know that people died tonight, and it's because of me. Because I couldn't stay away from you. They died because this is my world, Faith. This is who I am. I warned you. His voice was ice now, the warmth she'd grown to love completely gone. But if you can't accept it, if you can't accept me, then maybe you're right. Maybe you should go. The dismissal in his tone broke something inside her. She'd expected him to fight for her, to reassure her, to promise it would be different. Instead, he was letting her go, just like she'd feared all along. Fine. She grabbed her purse, her hands shaking. I'll go. She walked past him and he didn't stop her. Didn't reach for her. Didn't say a word. The silence was deafening. Kwan waited outside, his expression carefully neutral. Miss Faith, I'll drive you wherever you need to go. The ride back to her apartment was torture. Faith kept expecting her phone to ring, expecting Minho to call and take back his cold dismissal. But the phone stayed silent. The next few days blurred together in misery. Faith went through the motions, visiting her mother, who was being discharged soon, going to work, eating barely enough to survive. The black cars that had followed her everywhere were gone. Minho's protection had been withdrawn, along with his presence. She told herself it was better this way. Safer. Simpler. But her heart didn't believe the lies. Ji-won tried to comfort her. Maybe it's for the best. You said yourself it was too intense, too dangerous. I know, Faith whispered. But knowing didn't stop the ache in her chest, didn't fill the void Minho had left behind. A week passed. Then too. Faith threw herself into work, picking up extra shifts at the translation company, staying busy enough that she didn't have time to think. But at night, alone in her bed, she couldn't escape the memories, his touch, his smile, the way he'd looked at her like she was his entire world. Her mother noticed, of course. You've been sad since you brought me home, the older woman observed one evening, her eyes knowing. Is this about the man who paid for my surgery? Faith's carefully constructed walls crumbled. She told her mother everything, the desperate offer, Minho's unexpected kindness, how she'd fallen impossibly in love, and how it had all fallen apart in violence and fear. Her mother listened, then took Faith's hands in her own. Baby girl, love is never simple. And loving a complicated man makes it even harder. But the question isn't whether it's hard. The question is whether he's worth it. He is, Faith admitted, the truth of it washing over her. But I don't know if I'm strong enough for his world. Strength isn't about never being afraid. It's about choosing love despite the fear. Her mother squeezed her hands. If you love him, truly love him, then fight for it. Don't let fear steal your happiness. That night, Faith lay awake, her mother's words echoing in her mind. She'd run when things got hard. Let her fear make the decision instead of her heart. Minho had warned her about his world, shown her both his darkness and his light, and she'd chosen him anyway. The violence wasn't because of her. It was the reality of his life, a life he'd offered to share completely. She'd been a coward. And worse, she'd hurt him in the process. The next morning, Faith dressed carefully, gathering her courage. She would go to Minho, apologize, fight for them the way he'd fought to protect her. She grabbed her phone to call for a cab. And froze. A text from an unknown number, sent hours ago while she slept. If you want to see your mother alive again, come to the address below. Alone. Tell no one. You have 2 hours. Terror turned her blood to ice. She ran to her mother's room, finding it empty, the window open, signs of a struggle evident in the overturned chair and scattered pills. Faith's hands shook as she dialed Minho's number, the one she'd deleted but still knew by heart. It went straight to voicemail. She tried again. Same result. The message was clear. She was on her own. The people who'd taken her mother had made sure she couldn't reach Minho for help. She checked the address, an abandoned warehouse district on the outskirts of Seoul. Exactly the kind of place where people disappeared. But what choice did she have? Her mother was everything to her. She couldn't risk her life by involving the police or trying to find Minho through other channels. The clock was ticking. Faith grabbed a knife from the kitchen, tucking it into her boot, a pitiful weapon, but it was something. Then she left, catching a cab to the warehouse district, each passing minute cranking her fear higher. The warehouse was exactly as ominous as she'd imagined. Rusted metal, broken windows, isolation. Faith approached on shaking legs, pushing open the heavy door. Inside, her mother sat tied to a chair, gagged but alive. Relief flooded through Faith for precisely 3 seconds before someone grabbed her from behind, wrenching her arms back. Right on time, a voice said in accented English. A man stepped from the shadows, older, scarred, radiating violence. I'm Choi. You probably haven't heard of me, but I've certainly heard of you. Kang Minho's weakness. His soft spot. Faith struggled against the grip holding her. Let my mother go. Your fight is with Minho, not her. Choi laughed, the sound devoid of humor. Oh, but she's leverage just like you. Minho destroyed my operations, killed my men, all because Park was stupid enough to touch you. So now, I'm going to make him suffer. I'm going to take everything he cares about and destroy it in front of him. He pulled out a phone, dialing. Mr. Kong. I have something of yours. 2 somethings, actually. The woman and her mother. If you want them alive, you'll come alone to the following address. You have 30 minutes. Faith's heart hammered. This was a trap. They'd kill Minho the moment he arrived. No. Don't tell him where. The man holding her clamped a hand over her mouth. Choi smiled coldly. He's already on his way. Love makes even the smartest men stupid. The next 20 minutes were agony. Faith was tied to a chair beside her mother, watching armed men position themselves throughout the warehouse. This wasn't just about revenge. This was an execution plan down to the last detail. I'm sorry, Faith whispered to her mother, tears streaming down her face. This is all my fault. Her mother shook her head, eyes fierce despite the gag, trying to communicate something Faith couldn't understand. Then the warehouse door exploded inward. Minho entered like an avenging angel, alone as demanded, but there was nothing vulnerable about him. He radiated lethal intent, his dark eyes scanning the room, cataloging threats, landing on Faith with an intensity that stole her breath. Let them go, he said calmly, voice carrying across the warehouse. Your fight is with me. Choi emerged from the shadows, gun in hand. How noble. How predictable. You're going to watch them die, Kong. Watch everything you love bleed out. And then when you're broken, I'll kill you too. You can try. Minho's smile was terrifying. But you made one critical mistake. What's that? You assumed I'd come alone. All hell broke loose. The windows shattered as Minho's men crashed through from every angle. Kwon leading the charge, 24 armed soldiers moving with military precision. The warehouse became a war zone. Minho moved through the chaos like death incarnate, taking down anyone between him and Faith. A bullet grazed his shoulder. He didn't even flinch. Someone came at him with a knife. He disarmed them and kept moving, focused entirely on reaching her. Choi aimed his gun at Faith's head. One more step and she dies. Minho froze, hands raised. You pull that trigger, and you won't live long enough to regret it. Maybe. But neither will she. Choi's finger tightened on the trigger. Faith did the only thing she could think of. She threw herself sideways, chair and all, crashing to the ground. The shot went wide. Minho didn't waste the opening. He closed the distance in seconds, his fist connecting with Choi's jaw with devastating force. The gun skittered away. What followed was brutal and efficient. Minho beat Choi with cold fury, each blow precise and punishing. When Choi finally stopped moving, Minho turned away, dismissing him as irrelevant, and ran to Faith. His hands were gentle despite the violence still echoing in the warehouse as he cut her bonds. Are you hurt? Faith, look at me. Are you hurt? I'm okay, she gasped. My mother. Kwon has her. She's safe. He pulled Faith into his arms, crushing her against him. His whole body trembled. I thought I'd lost you. When I got that call, when I realized what was happening, his voice broke. You came. Faith whispered against his chest. You saved us. Always. I will always come for you. He pulled back, his hands cupping her face, thumb brushing away her tears. Faith, I'm sorry. I was an idiot. When you wanted to leave, I should have fought harder, should have explained instead of pushing you away. I was hurt and angry and terrified of losing you, so I made it happen anyway. I'm sorry too. I ran when things got hard instead of trusting us. Trusting you. She gripped his shirt, needing to hold on to something solid. I love you, Minho. I'm terrified of your world, but I'm more terrified of living without you in it. His kiss was desperate and claiming, pouring weeks of separation and fear and love into one perfect moment. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Minho rested his forehead against hers. No more running, he said firmly. From either of us. We face this together. Your fear, my darkness, all of it. Together. Together, Faith agreed. Around them, Minho's men were securing the warehouse, tending to the few injuries on their side. Kwon had freed Faith's mother, who was being checked by a medic. When she saw Faith, she broke free and pulled her daughter into a fierce embrace. You're okay, Faith sobbed. Thank God you're okay. Her mother held her tight, then looked over Faith's shoulder at Minho, who stood respectfully back. You must be the man who's stolen my daughter's heart. Minho approached, bowing deeply in the traditional Korean way. Mrs. Okonkwo. Iem Kang Minho. And I'm the man who's going to spend the rest of his life protecting your daughter, if she'll let me. Faith's mother studied him for a long moment, taking in the blood on his clothes, the cold competence of his men, the way her daughter looked at him like he hung the moon. Finally she smiled. She'll let you. But hurt her, and you'll answer to me. Minho's lips quirket. I wouldn't expect anything less. The next few days were a whirlwind. Minho insisted Faith and her mother stay at his penthouse, surrounding them with enough security to guard a president. He also insisted on having Faith's mother fully checked by his personal physicians, ensuring the kidnapping hadn't aggravated her recent surgery. You're being overprotective, Faith observed, watching Minho pace while they waited for test results. I'm being appropriate, he countered. She's important to you, which makes her important to me. I failed to protect her once. It won't happen again. Faith crossed to him, wrapping her arms around his waist. He stilled immediately, his own arms coming around her. You didn't fail. You saved us both. After you were taken. After you were terrorized. His voice was rough with guilt. Faith, the things that could have happened didn't happen. Because of you. She tilted her head back, meeting his tortured gaze. Stop punishing yourself. We're here. We're safe. We're together. Minho's hand slid into her hair, cradling her head. I love you. I know I haven't said it enough, haven't said it right, but I love you so completely it terrifies me. You're my heart, Faith. My redemption. My everything. I love you too, she whispered, tears pricking her eyes. So much it scares me sometimes. Then we'll be scared together. He kissed her softly, then deeper, until they were both breathless and clinging to each other. A polite cough interrupted them. Kwan stood in the doorway, professional mask firmly in place despite the knowing look in his eyes. The test results are back. Mrs. Okonkwo is perfectly healthy. Relief flooded through both of them. Faith's mother was given the all-clear, though Minho still insisted she stay at the penthouse until he was certain every possible threat had been neutralized. That evening, over dinner, Faith's mother regaled them with stories of Faith's childhood in Nigeria, much to Faith's embarrassment and Minho's delight. He listened with rapt attention, asking questions, filing away every detail about the woman he loved. She was always headstrong, her mother said fondly. Even as a little girl, once Faith set her mind to something, nothing could stop her. I've noticed, Minho replied, his eyes warm on Faith. It's one of the things I love most about her. After dinner, Faith's mother diplomatically retired early, leaving the two of them alone on the terrace. The Seoul skyline glittered below, but Faith only had eyes for Minho. Your mother approves, he said, pulling her into his arms as they looked out over the city. Were you worried she wouldn't? Terrified. You're her only daughter. I'm a Korean mafia boss who's put you in danger multiple times. Not exactly ideal son-in-law material. Faith laughed, the sound light and free. And yet here we are. Here we are, he echoed. Then suddenly he turned her to face him, his expression serious. Faith, I need to ask you something. Her heart skipped. Okay. Move in with me. Officially. Bring your mother too. There's more than enough space, and I want her close where I can ensure she's protected and cared for. I want to wake up with you every morning, fall asleep with you every night. I want everything with you. Minho. Faith's eyes filled with tears, the good kind this time. Yes. Yes to all of it. His smile was brilliant, transforming his usually serious face into something beautiful. He kissed her thoroughly, right there under the stars, uncaring who might see. 2 months later, Faith had settled completely into her new life. Her mother had her own suite in the penthouse, had made friends with the household staff, and spent her days cooking traditional Nigerian dishes that had even Minho's hardened security team begging for seconds. Faith had quit the translation company to work as Minho's personal liaison for his legitimate business ventures. Turns out the Mafia Boss had extensive legal operations too. She was good at it, her language skills and cultural knowledge proving invaluable. But the best part was the life they'd built together. Minho had been true to his word. He included her in everything, never hiding his darker dealings, but always ensuring she was protected from the worst of it. He'd even started pulling back from the most violent aspects of his work, delegating to trusted lieutenants, focusing more on the business empire than the blood. You're changing me, he'd told her one night, pulling her close in their bed, making me want to be better. You were always better, she'd insisted. I just helped you see it. Still, there were challenges. The cultural differences sometimes caused confusion. The public scrutiny was intense. Seoul's most eligible bachelor suddenly devoted to a curvy African woman had the tabloids in a frenzy. And there were still enemies, still people who saw Faith as Minho's weakness. But they faced it together, just as they'd promised. One evening, Minho came home early from a business meeting, his expression unreadable. Faith looked up from her laptop, concern flickering through her. What's wrong? Nothing's wrong. He crossed to her, pulling her to her feet. But we need to talk. Her heart hammered. Those words were never good. About what? Minho took both her hands, his thumb stroking her knuckles. We've been together for 4 months now, living together for 2. And every single day, I wake up more certain that I can't live without you. Minho. Faith's breath caught. I'm not a patient man, Faith. I'm possessive, jealous, demanding. When I want something, I take it. When I love something, I claim it. His eyes burned into hers. I want to claim you in every way possible. I want the world to know you're mine. I want legal, binding, permanent. He dropped to one knee, pulling a small box from his pocket. Inside was a ring. A stunning diamond surrounded by smaller stones that caught the light like stars. Faith Okonkwo, will you marry me? Will you let me spend the rest of my life loving you, protecting you, worshipping you? Will you be my wife, my partner, my everything? Tears streamed down Faith's face. Yes, she sobbed. Yes, yes, 1,000 times yes. Minho slid the ring onto her finger, then stood, lifting her off her feet and spinning her around. When he set her down, he kissed her with all the passion and promise of their future. Her mother emerged from her suite, alerted by the commotion, and squealed with joy when she saw the ring. My baby's getting married. The celebration that followed was intimate but perfect. Minho opened champagne, toasted to their future, and later that night, showed Faith exactly how thoroughly he planned to love her for the rest of their lives. The wedding was planned for 3 months later. Enough time to organize something beautiful, but not so long that Minho's impatience would drive everyone crazy. They decided on a fusion ceremony, incorporating both Korean and Nigerian traditions, held at an exclusive venue with security tighter than a presidential summit. The guest list was an interesting mix. Minho's business associates, both legal and otherwise, Faith's family who flew in from Nigeria, members of Seoul's elite society, and a few genuinely shocked politicians who'd never expected to be invited to a mafia boss's wedding. But the most surprising guest was Lee Soo-jin, who approached Faith during the reception rehearsal. I owe you an apology, she said stiffly. I was cruel when we first met. Jealous. I thought I knew what Minho needed, but I was wrong. He needs you. And watching you together. I've never seen him so happy. Faith, secure in Minho's love and generous by nature, accepted the apology. Thank you for saying that. He'll destroy the world for you, Soo-jin continued. I hope you know that. I hope you understand what kind of power you hold. I-do, Faith replied quietly. And I'll spend my life being worthy of it. The wedding day arrived bright and beautiful. Faith wore a custom gown that incorporated both cultures. White silk with intricate Nigerian beading, traditional Korean elements woven throughout. Minho looked devastating in a perfectly tailored black suit, his eyes never leaving his bride as she walked down the aisle on her mother's arm. The ceremony was beautiful, emotional, and when Minho kissed his bride, the applause was thunderous. They were married, bound, forever. The reception was a celebration that would be talked about for years. Minho held Faith close during their first dance, whispering promises in her ear that made her blush and laugh. You're mine now, he murmured. Legali, ufficially mine, Mrs. Kong. I was always yours, she whispered back. The ring just makes it official. His arms tightened around her. I'm going to spend every day of the rest of our lives making you happy. You already do. 6 months into their marriage, Faith started feeling tired, nauseous in the mornings, emotional at random moments. At first, she attributed it to stress, adjusting to life as Minho's wife, managing his legitimate business operations, navigating high society. But when her period was 2 weeks late, she couldn't ignore the possibility any longer. She took the test alone in their bathroom, hands shaking as she waited for the results. When the positive sign appeared, joy and terror flooded through her in equal measure. A baby. She was carrying Minho's child. How would he react? They'd never discussed children, hadn't planned for this so soon. Would he be happy? Angry? Scared? She didn't have to wonder long. Minho found her still sitting on the bathroom floor, the test clutched in her hand. He took one look at her face at the test, and everything else faded away. "You're pregnant," he said, voice filled with wonder. "Yes." Faith searched his face anxiously. "Are you? Is this okay?" Minho dropped to his knees beside her, his hands framing her face. "Okay. Faith, you're carrying our child. Our baby." His eyes were suspiciously bright. "This is everything." Relief and joy burst through her. "Really? Really?" He kissed her softly, then pressed his forehead to hers. "We're going to be parents. I'm going to be a father." His hand moved to her still flat stomach, reverent and protective. "I'm going to keep you both safe. I'm going to love this child the way I love you, completely, fiercely, eternally." Tears spilled down Faith's cheeks. "We're really doing this. We're really doing this." Minho pulled her into his arms, holding her like she was the most precious thing in the world. "And I can't wait." The pregnancy transformed Minho into an even more protective version of himself, something Faith hadn't thought possible. He insisted on accompanying her to every doctor's appointment, interviewed an army of obstetricians before selecting one, and had the penthouse modified to be perfectly safe for a baby. "Minho, we have 7 months," Faith laughed, watching him personally inspect the construction of the nursery for the 3rd time that week. "I want everything perfect," he insisted. "For you and our son." Or daughter." "Or daughter," he agreed, his smile soft. "Though I'm hoping for a little girl who looks exactly like you." Her mother was thrilled, already knitting baby clothes and planning to stay in Seoul to help with the baby. "My grandbaby," she cooed, hands on Faith's growing belly. Growing up with the best of both worlds. As Faith's pregnancy progressed, Minho became even more devoted. He worked from home more often, rearranged meetings to be present for ultrasounds, and spent evenings with his hand on her stomach, talking to their unborn child in soft Korean. "What are you telling them?" Faith asked one night, running her fingers through his hair as he pressed his cheek to her belly. "That they're loved. That they're wanted. That their mother is the strongest, most beautiful woman in the world, and they should treat her accordingly." He looked up, eyes warm. "And that their father will protect them with his dying breath." The birth was intense, terrifying, and beautiful. Minho refused to leave Faith's side, holding her hand through every contraction, whispering encouragement and love. And when their daughter was finally born, perfect and tiny and screaming, he wept openly, pressing kisses to Faith's sweaty forehead. "You did it," he whispered in awe. "She's perfect. You're perfect. Thank you. Thank you for this gift." They named her Amara Minji, grace in Igbo and intelligent in Korean, a perfect blend of both their cultures. She had Faith's dark curls and Minho's sharp features, and from her first breath, she owned both their hearts completely. The first few months were exhausting and wonderful. Minho was a surprisingly hands-on father, changing diapers and doing midnight feedings, his dangerous mafia persona completely at odds with the gentle way he cradled their tiny daughter. One night, Faith woke to find Minho's side of the bed empty. She found him in the nursery, Amara sleeping peacefully in his arms as he rocked slowly in the chair by the window. "Can't sleep," Faith whispered from the doorway. Minho looked up, his expression soft in the dim light. "She's so small. So fragile. Sometimes I just need to hold her, make sure she's real." Faith crossed to him, perching on the arm of the chair. "She's real. And she's safe. Because she has you." "She has us," Minho corrected. He looked down at their daughter, then up at Faith, his eyes full of emotion. "You know, before you walked into my office that night, I thought I had everything. Power, money, respect. I thought I knew what it meant to be successful, to win." He reached up, cupping Faith's cheek with his free hand. "But I had nothing. I was empty, just going through motions, convinced connection was weakness." And then you offered me something I didn't even know I needed. Not your body, not desperation, but hope. The possibility of something more. Tears spilled down Faith's cheeks. Minho. You saved me, Faith. You and Amara. You gave me a reason to be better, to want more than just survival and dominance. You gave me love. Family. Home. His voice broke slightly. You gave me everything that matters. Faith kissed him softly, carefully so as not to wake the baby. We saved each other. They stayed like that, the three of them bathed in moonlight. A mafia boss, an African woman who'd once been desperate enough to offer herself to a stranger, and the tiny miracle that proved love could conquer even the darkest past. Outside, Seoul glittered with a million lights. Somewhere in the city, Minho's empire continued its complex dance of power and control. But here, in this quiet nursery, none of that mattered. Here, there was only love. Fierce, protective, eternal. Faith had walked into Minho's office expecting to sacrifice everything. Instead, she'd found everything she'd never known she needed. And as she watched her husband cradle their daughter, whispering promises in Korean and love in every language that mattered, she knew with absolute certainty that she'd do it all again. Every moment of fear. Every second of doubt. Every dangerous, impossible, beautiful step that had led them here. Because this family, this love, this life they'd built from desperation and danger, was worth everything. And it was only the beginning. A dark romance about an African woman and a Korean mafia boss who found love in the most unexpected circumstances, proving that sometimes the greatest gifts come wrapped in fear, that the strongest love is forged in fire, and that family can be built from the ashes of two broken souls finding wholeness in each other.